You guys did not take well to my top 15 Warframes video, so let's see if it can get any worse. And also, I just did a how to farm every Warframe, so consider this supplementary readings. Anyways, that is enough school references for the next decade. We have 51 Warframes to get through, so we really need to get started. Ash. Oh, you used to have so much potential. Well, actually, he is just as powerful as he always was, but the rest of the game has evolved without him. Allow me to explain. Ash has a lot of things going for him. Invisibility, which is just always really strong. His ultimate deals true damage, and he has always had access to easy armor strip with his shurikens and his augment. But that's the thing. With the Veilbreaker update, abilities now strip armor based on maximum armor instead of current armor. This means that stripping 50% armor twice removes 100% armor instead of 75% armor. With that said, however, Ash is still very powerful even if he is only really capable of doing endless survival and disruption efficiently. At that, he is however one of the best. He goes right into A tier. Atlas is painfully mediocre. He does alright damage. He's pretty tanky. He can shield gate, but he's not particularly good at it. He's not as easy to play as someone like Octavia, but he's not exactly difficult either. I'm gonna put him painfully in the middle. Banshee has one of the strongest damage boosts in the game, which also happens to bypass the damage reduction of leeches and sisters, which normally causes them to have more damage reduction the more damage you deal. When playing in a team as a support, Banshee is straight up overpowered. There is no way around that. But when playing on her own, well, I hope you like shield gating. She's more squishy than the mouse I flattened under a quarter pallet at the warehouse where I used to work. Yes, that really happened. Anyways, for this reason, I can only put her in A tier. Baruuk. So, you guys were not exactly satisfied with my opinion on Baruuk in my top 5 Warframes, so let me try again. He is incredibly strong under the right circumstances. With this build, you will be running around with 99.5% damage reduction with overshields that is constantly replenished, while also removing any harmful status effect, while also stripping their armor in a giant circle around you. And the damage. Oh, the damage. And you can build him to do even more damage with heavy attacks. This all makes him very powerful, but he cannot defend an objective. He simply is not suited to do excavation or defense or the like. Furthermore, in areas with low enemy spawn density, he straight up stops working, such as in the open worlds. With that being said, he's still going into S tier. Caliban. This is a weird one. His kit doesn't really seem to have any synergy. Nothing really works in tandem with one another. Half of his kit is completely useless and the other half is completely busted, and it doesn't really add up to anything. His best ability is his ultimate, in which all his value lies, as CC straight up stops being useful after a while because of all of the Eximus units, and the ultimate takes such a long time to cast. It feels like his design is already obsolete because of the Eximus changes, so we'll put him in C tier. Chroma, one of my personal favorites. You get to run around and be super tanky, so long as you don't try to do level cap. The damage buff is also quite good. It is of course additive, which is nothing special compared to some of the other options, but it's nothing to sneeze at either. He is the go-to frame for getting credits in the endgame with the Prophet Taker. The main issue he has is that primary and secondary Merciless goes into the same damage pool as his Vex armor. If only we had a new arcane that boosted different damage multipliers. Oh wait, I'm extremely pleased that I can put Chroma into A tier. Ember. She used to be the queen of destroying low-level trash, but then they had to go ahead and rework her into whatever this is. She has potential to be a pretty decent health tank, but the last thing you want to do in the middle of a mission is strip some of your own damage protection. She also has some pretty solid armor strip with her Fire Blast, but in my opinion, it really isn't enough. You can't really hang with the rest of the level cap frames, and that's the only situation where you would consider using her. In low level exterminate and capture mission, she is simply beat by, spoilers, Titania. Equinox, surprisingly, has a lot going for her, so you can put enemies to sleep. She's a secondary nuke, storing the damage of her allies to release it in a giant AoE. She can also grant shields to her entire team with every kill. She can grant more ability strength, she can cause enemies to take more damage, she can do it all. She's a fantastic support, but she's weirdly effective as a solo frame as well. We're gonna put her in A tier. Excaliban. Just because he's a starter frame doesn't mean that he isn't necessarily viable. He just so happens to not be particularly viable. Can you do any content with him? Sure, but you're not gonna have a very... what's the opposite of smooth? A very flawed gameplay experience. Any good Warframe design should balance damage and survivability, and Excaliban doesn't do that. His only survivability tool is his blind, which once again doesn't work on Eximus units. While he deals a lot of damage, especially with his augment, he doesn't deal the most damage either. We're gonna put him in C tier. Frost. He's still quite good at defense, but let's be real, his kit is pretty old. He does have some pretty nice augments, and the armor strip on his ultimate is also quite nice, but you will notice I keep saying that. Of course, you do have the ability to two-shot any enemy by pushing them into the walls with your bubbles. If you want to have an extremely janky experience playing this game, then Frost is gonna be an S tier for you. For the rest of us, we'll just go ahead and put him in B tier, mostly because of the defense missions. Gara. Possibly the most underrated Warframe in this entire game. She's pretty damn tanky. Her main damage ability also gives her 90% damage reduction. She blinds enemies whenever she touches a light source. She's invulnerable while casting her ultimate, and she can shieldgate very easily. On top of being incredibly tanky, because that's not worth much on its own, she also has limitless damage scaling. The main drawback to Gara is that if she touches a nullifier, their run is over. All the damage you build up on her second ability will be set right back to 0. It is with a heavy heart that we have to put her in B tier. And also, you are required by law to have the sonic drowning music in the background the entire time while playing her. Garuda. I just realized that she has a pretty similar name to Varuna. I'm sure that's just a coincidence and that it most certainly won't come up again. Anyways, Garuda is unexpectedly strong. She has several iframes and virtually limitless amounts of energy and the ability to make any enemy bleed from any source of damage. I guess you could also use her 1 as a nuke, but you could also not do that. You have to press a lot of buttons to make her work, and also she's a very slow frame, making her pretty much unplayable outside of survival and disruption. And for reasons we will get into later in this endeavor, she's only going to be in C tier. Gauss. Oh boy, you guys were not happy about my treatment of your boy Gauss. Let me try and do him justice. The Gauss has one of the best tanking abilities in the game, making him invulnerable to most damage sources, and his passive, which causes his shields to regenerate sooner, means that he always has a mini shield gate to take the damage types that he otherwise wouldn't have been able to block. Also, the buffs that his ultimate offers are simply amazing. The main thing holding Gauss back is that funnily enough, he's actually not that fast at killing enemies. He really isn't particularly great outside of level cap scenarios, and there is so many different Warframes that can do level cap anyways. With that being said, he's still very high A tier. Grendel. This is one great rework. He's now one tanky boy that spreads viral all around, knockdowns enemies, and spam energy like there was no tomorrow. But I'm still gonna put him in B tier, simply because the majority of his value comes from his Inarous, which just so happens to be his subsume ability, meaning that you could use it on support, which honestly gets more use out of it compared to Grendel. Gyre. She sure does deal a lot of damage. At least early on the steel path. She doesn't have any real scaling, making her in many ways ill-suited for level cap, but she's pretty good in just normal survival, decent in defense, and just in any steel path mission. But her survivability problems is so much worse than Excaliban. She's one of those frames that has to rely entirely on shield gating just to survive. In my opinion, that makes her incredibly unfun, and therefore she's actually going all the way down into C tier. Harrow. Ah yes, the non-support support. Harrow probably has one of the most confusing kits I've ever seen. Everything about him screams support, but he's actually best played solo. He's one of those weapon platform frames that doesn't deal much damage himself, but which has buffs that benefit his weapons, and those are quite some buffs, not to mention his ultimate. He also has really decent crowd control that serves a secondary purpose, preventing it from becoming useless when nearing level cap. And when you're playing with some quick thinking shenanigans, you have to be a special kind of, well, let's just say that if you die, it's your own fault. A tier. Hildryn. This is probably going to be an unpopular opinion, but most of her value has been packed into her pillets, which is, once again, her subsumability. Sure, she does offer some other benefits, such as giving your allies a longer shield gate, but let's be honest, it is so rare already that you get to have a support. Would you really want to spend that on Hildryn when you could have had a Wisp or a Banshee or a Trinity? No, I didn't think so. She goes into C tier. But hey, look on the bright side, if you ever wanted to roleplay as Warban's Bastille, now you can. Hydroid. Let's just call a spade a spade. None of his abilities does anything that would be considered to be even remotely useful, and just stop beating this dead horse. Until this guy gets a rework, he is the first Warframe to go into the actual trash category. Inarous. Here is another Warframe that goes into the trash tier. Same reasoning as before, but on top of that, he is the only Warframe that cannot use shield gating, making him the worst Warframe for level cap. Ivara. Once again, having invisibility in this game is very powerful. Having headshot multipliers are very powerful. Getting more critical chance from your augments are very powerful. Ivara is incredibly powerful in the sense that she has perfect defense with her invisibility, and she also has some really powerful damage buffs. However, if you have to move around or defend an objective, she is completely useless. She's pretty much only viable for survival, but she's quite strong in there. A tier. Khora. Would you like some damage? With some damage and some damage on the side. Yeah, so Khora deals a lot of damage, and she also has the best CC ability in the game. She can even stun acolytes with her ensnare. With her pilfering strangledome, she's the dedicated loot frame and damage dealer at the same time. Up into S tier you go. Lavos. Here is another unpopular opinion. I believe that by the time Lavos was released into the game, energy was so easily accessible that the majority of Warframes could cast their abilities more or less as often as they wanted to, making him a direct downgrade from the rest of the Warframes. And it's not like his abilities are anything special that would warrant having a cooldown on it. And furthermore, his ability to tank isn't anything special either. It is like his design was already obsolete by the time he was introduced into the game, so we're gonna put him in trash tier. Limbo. I promise that I'm not doing this out of spite. Loki. Back before operators, Loki was actually a very powerful support. He could resurrect downed enemies with no risk due to his invisibility, and he could disarm entire rooms. This was before shield gating as well. Nowadays, the utility he offers is pretty much dig and null. I still feel like I have to put him in B tier just because of the invisibility and the stealth damage multiplier. Mag. In my opinion, Mag didn't get a rework, she just got a touch-up. Luckily enough, that was all she needed. She is a damage-dealing monster with her bubbles, especially when using some very specific weapons. She's not exactly tanky, but she's not easy to kill either. A tier. Mesa. Here is the frame I keep addressing by the wrong gender by genuine mistake, unlike some other Warframes on this list. I already talked about Mesa in my top 5 Warframes, so I won't keep going on and on about her. So to quickly surmise my points, I'll say that she has the greatest ability to distribute her damage in the game. She's the queen of the index and the open worlds, and when using muzzle flash, she's quite viable for steel path missions as well. Easy S tier. Mirage. If we didn't allow subsume abilities, the Mirage would be quite high up on the list, but since you can simply subsume Eclipse onto other, more tanky frames, I'll have to put her all the way down in B tier. Sure, you can use some gimmicky builds for Elite Sanctuary Onslaught with a second and a fourth ability, but just no. Nekros. He is super tanky and all, like he really is, and he does have additional loot with his Desecrate, and he does have some pretty easy armor strip with Terrify, but he lacks some kind of weapon buff to push him over the edge for me, so B tier it is. Nezha, a jack of all trades but master of none. Good CC, good damage, good survivability. Not really anything that great about her, but apparently just being good at everything lands you in A tier. Nidus, the only Warframe with health gating, which comes at the steep cost of not having shield gating. Ironically enough, his damage doesn't actually scale that well into the later stages of an endless mission where he's supposed to be at his most powerful. 90% damage reduction isn't nearly enough. I have to regrettably put him in B tier. Nova. She's an integral part of any farming squad. She plays best in teams where people can take advantage of her ability to speed up the enemies. With Null Stars, she can hold her own for a while, but she's speed in pretty much every game mode when it comes to solo capabilities. She falls handily into A tier. Nyx. Her defense strip is a joke considering that Inarous exists. Her main survivability tool is the equivalent of spamming a bunch of radiation procs. Her ultimate requires an augment to be even slightly useful. Her entire kit is just meh. But apparently it comes together well enough to push her into B tier, I guess. Oberon. Same problem as Nyx, but worse. Even with his augment, his damage abilities are laughable. His CC just kinda sucks. He has one of the worst armor strips in the game, requiring enemies to stand on the grass for the ultimate to strip. His survival strategy is basically just to stack armor, and he doesn't even do it as well as Chroma. Sorry grandpa, watering the lawn ain't gonna cut it. C tier. Octavia. Oh, I hate you. You are the bane of any content creator. Every time you make a build, you dread one of those messages going, but you can just AFK to level cap with Octavia. And yes, okay, fine. You can. You can sit in the corner and teabag for all 8 hours. Have fun. She's S tier, by the way. Protea. Here we go. Protea is acquired early in the player progression considering just how strong she is. Her grenades are stupid for survivability, and with the grouping tool, she is a DPS monster, not to mention Archon Vitality. She's also a team player with her dispensary, which also allows you to level your Archons much more easily, and she's also the best railjack captain. Actually, you know what? I talked myself into it. I don't think she's A tier. She must be S tier actually. Rhino! Right, I don't have a lot today. That's a typo. I don't have a lot to say about you, Rhino. He's a tanky motherfucker with his iron skin, and he has good damage with raw, but I can't help but feel that he can't quite keep up with the Warframes in A tier. So, B tier it is, I guess. Don't kill me. Saryn. I mean, just go watch one of my many videos on Saryn. I put her in the #1 spot as the #1 best Warframe. Obviously, she's going into S tier. Sevagoth. I'm not saying that he can't be powerful, but I am saying that most of his value is found in Gloom, which can be played on like other Warframes. I don't even feel like getting into his abilities, because you know what? If you enjoy playing him, good for you. Knock yourself out. For me, however, he's just C tier. Styanics. Honestly, I don't know what that was right there. I got so bored I just started doing a bit for no reason. It doesn't even fit there, but I think I'm gonna keep it in the video. Anyways, so ironically, my stance on Styanics compared to the rest of the community seems to have completely flipped. They nerfed his ultimate and all of a sudden all you guys were like, oh, he's trash now. I think he's really strong. I really do. He has everything you normally add with a subsume ability. Grouping, stripping armor, survivability, energy sustain. He's just perfect for survival and disruption. Furthermore, however, he is an amazing support with rally point as well. I never thought that paying 100 energy to leap into the air, making myself vulnerable and unable to prime enemies or use the operator while dealing less damage than I would otherwise have been able to do with my weapons to be a particularly viable option. However, he is an A tier for me. Titania. She is great for opening relics, and that's it. For me, that still warrants top of A tier. Valkyria. Can you make her work under some very specific circumstances? Sure. Can she actually be very powerful under those very specific circumstances? Sure. I find that being unable to kill something 2 feet in front of me to be nearly unbearable. She is so slow, and she has one good ability. Oh, you think this is a good ability? How often have you used it on other frames? It is in my opinion that she desperately needs a rework. She's going into C tier for the same reason as Garuda. That being Varuna. Hey, so it's me from the future. I kind of forgot to talk about Trinity, even though she's my most played Warframe up until recently. And so it's kind of sad that I have to put her in B tier. Sure, she can heal the team, sure she gives some damage reduction, and she can also give some shields back with Energy Vampire. However, let's not kid ourselves. One of the main draws of her is her ability to give energy to your team. Energy becomes less and less important, and thus her relevancy also reigns. Honestly, if you just take Styanics with maximum ability strength and use Inarous on him, he's gonna grant you just about as much energy as Energy Vampire, and he doesn't even need a target. And he gives you shields whenever you kill something, which is just way more efficient. Warban. Flechette Orb has built-in scaling? Yeah, and so what? The man has got 0 survivability. Eximus units destroy this guy by walking into his Bastille and one-tapping him. Furthermore, enemies resisting CC is also almost impossible to get onto the orb where it can kill them. And he has nothing else going for him. Oh look, Tesla sometimes apply a shock proc. Oh god, no. C tier, go away. Volt. Being a starter frame, you would think that he would be relegated to the bottom of the arsenal, but oh god no. He is the Eidolon Hunter. He is used for speedrunning Prophet Taker. He's good at capture and rescue and so on, but is well capable of holding his own in a survival while dominating disruption. And on top of all of that, he is also an amazing support with his augment. He was just built for this game. S tier. Varuna. People have not shown a lot of interest in our werewolf Warframe, and you know what? Fair enough. After Irelia, I would probably be skeptical of Warframes built on their design as well, but they nailed it. Unless you hate melee combat, there is no reason not to play Varuna. She's super powerful, straight up broken with Muscle Flash. She's super safe as long as you play well, as it should be, and her damage. Holy shit, the damage. S tier. Wirzba. My absolute favorite support to have. Just look at all these wonderful buffs. And you know, breeds swords. First up, it's a blind, which is super strong in this game. And then it also has a damage multi built into it. And the sparks. Not to mention her invisibility as well, because I guess why not. A tier. Wukong. This guy has fallen off a bit with the nerfs, but he's still fast and tanky. He's just a really good errand boy. Still S tier. Yeah, I agree with all of that except S tier. I don't know what I was thinking. His first ability is just 300% more damage, but it comes on DE's dumb AI. His second ability is really good because it's fast and it's omnidirectional, but his third ability is just a bunch of armor, and you have to stand still and channel to get it. And we don't even talk about his fourth ability. Again, I don't know what the hell I was thinking. B tier at best. Cool. Yes, I made that joke twice. He was also destroyed by the Eximus changes. Beforehand, he could AFK the steel path, but the most powerful enemies bypass the resignator, and you will be dropped. This is really quite sad because we lost a unique playstyle to this change. He just stops working after 10 minutes on the steel path. Sorry, C tier it is. Yeah, really. I'm just gonna put her at the bottom of C tier. I don't even have the resolve to go through her kit again. I'm so close to just throwing her down in trash tier, even though she doesn't necessarily deserve to be there. According to a power level, I'm just so fucking tired of her. Zephyr. Imagine being immune to ranged attacks while never having to touch the ground. Also, there are just hundreds of ways of breaking her tornado, turning them into nukes. The main reason she's only A tier is because you risk your life every time you have to go through a narrow doorway. Hello there, aspiring Tenos. This is your spreadsheet overlord with some live gameplay. No, just kidding. But we do need to talk about Revenant. You probably expect him to be S tier, but absolutely not. Now, a lot of you took it the wrong way, and you thought I meant that he wasn't. He was a dishonorable mention because he was too good. No, he is a dishonorable mention because he's too slow, right? Now I know you can do this and one-shot a bunch of heavy gunners, and you can do this all the way to level cap because it's based on their health and not on your actual damage, so it still percentage health. But Revenant has 3 main problems that really hold him back, and I'm gonna show you. So first up, let me go ahead and enthrall this guy and then reave him, right? So he dies, and when he dies, he spawns this well. The reason why he even spawns this well to begin with was because I manually enthralled him. Now this well will spit out these sparks that will enthrall more enemies. Now let me go ahead and create a new well. Oh wait, I can't, because I can't manually create any more thralls. Why not, you ask? Because these guys have been enthralled. Any enemy that is enthralled, whether it be manually, through the sparks of the well, or by taking damage from enthralled enemies, will become enthralled themselves, and the game counts all of it as just being enthralled. And this means that I then can't create any new thralls, right? And the problem is, the thralls that's created with the well doesn't create any more wells. So if there is like 7 enemies in the other room who is, too far away to be aggroed onto where the combat is actually happening, I can't create any new thralls, so I can't continue to spread it. And I don't know, because you can have, you can have up to like 30 or something thralls at once, but for some reason I can't create any more manual thralls once it surpasses 7, which is really dumb, and it just feels so fucking clunky, because you don't know when you have a bunch of thralls in the other room, and you can't really, even if you always kill your initial thralls by reaving them, you don't really know where your damn sparks are gonna go. It stays there for a while. If you move into the next room, it's just gonna stay there, right? And then you have the same problem. It feels really horrible to play with, but that's not even all. So let's go ahead and talk about reave, right? It's not a movement tool, right? It's not meant to be a movement tool. It's meant to kill enemies, right? If there is even the smallest fucking elevation, you can't get over that shit without cancelling the ability, and then you have to recast it. And just try to go through like a relatively compressed space where there is any amount of verticality, and you are not gonna be able to get through it. It's basically the same as trying to use Merlina for it. Hence why Revenant is always the last guy to complete a Fisher mission. Now, whatever, I'm not gonna keep going on and on about this because I guess this is subjective. So I've gone ahead and I summoned 2 enemies. This is a Corrupt Heavy Gunner and this is a Corrupt Eximus Heavy Gunner, okay? Now, if I go ahead and get some viral on this guy, right? I go ahead, he has 10 viral stacks on him. I breathe through him, he dies, right? Take this guy, get 10 stacks of viral, there we go, breathe through him. Did nothing. It basically did fucking nothing. And that's because Reave deals damage based on the target's maximum health. Maximum health and shields. So basically, it takes the total of the health, because it has no shields, right? And then it deals that amount of damage to the overguard, which is way higher than the health. So because of that, you're gonna have to like reave through him. Breathe through him. Breathe through him. Breathe through him. Right. And you might say, oh, but you can just like bring a weapon to deal with the Eximus units. It's gonna be like half the fucking units. Having the ability to one-shot all of the not threatening units is not good. So yeah, he's very tanky with Mesmer skin, but honestly, he's just super janky, and I mean, not being able to one-shot Eximus is just a disaster. So yeah, I all the way down into B tier. I'm not gonna cater to your opinion. I'm putting him in B tier. And that's everything. Thanks goodness. These take a while to make. If you're still watching, you're a legend. And if you're not already subscribed, why not? You're clearly enjoying the content. It does help out the channel. Anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and enjoy my Christmas now. Xmas, whatever. I don't care. I'll see you in the next video.